Military strikes between Israel and Iran are intensifying, even as the United States signals it can achieve its objectives without deploying ground troops. Meanwhile, diplomatic efforts continue with a proposed framework still under discussion. But with conflicting signals between military escalation and political messaging, key questions remain. Where is this conflict heading, and is there still a path to de-escalation? This is our very special extensive coverage of the US and Israeli war with Iran. Let's move on to the latest developments. U.S. Secretary of State Marco Rubio says Washington can meet its objectives in the Iran war without deploying ground troops, even as more than 1,000 additional service members are sent to the region. Speaking after G7 talks in France, Rubio told reporters the United States is targeting Iran's Navy, Air Force and missile systems, saying the operation is ahead of schedule. He added the war is expected to conclude in weeks, not months, and that President Donald Trump is preparing for multiple contingencies without giving further details.
They may get a shipment here or there now and then someone, but not enough to sustain their country. Okay, so the reason why they're having...
Meanwhile, Iran's nuclear facilities were struck Friday, just hours after Israel threatened to escalate and expand its campaign against Tehran. Israel has confirmed hitting a uranium processing plant in the central city of Yazd, a key site in Iran's nuclear program. While Iran's Atomic Energy Organization reports no radiation leaks or casualties, the diplomatic fallout is immediate. Iranian Foreign Minister Abbas Araghchi is vowing a heavy price in retaliation, accusing Israel of also hitting two major steel factories and a power plant. This latest escalation comes as Israel's Defense Minister Israel Katz pledges to intensify the campaign, even as regional efforts continue to broker a ceasefire. For more on this, we're joined from Beirut by Dr. Kamel Jafar, political researcher, and from Washington by Mr. Peter Roth, contributing editor at Newsweek. Thank you very much, both our distinguished guests, for joining us on Qnews. Mr. Roth, I start off with you and ask you, U.S. Secretary of State Marco Rubio says Washington can achieve its objectives without ground troops. What strategy is the United States relying on to reach those goals, sir?
I think, and thank you for having me, I think they're operating on the time-honored carrot and stick approach. The carrot is negotiations that potentially lead to an easing of sanctions. The stick is a increase in the intensity of the military activity designed to destroy Iran's nuclear program, eliminate the uranium that's already enriched, and cripple its ballistic missile development.
There are reports that Israel may expand operations into southern Lebanon up to the Litani River. How would that affect the current peace plan?
Yes, the Israeli advance in Lebanon is very complex, and also there is, from the Israeli side, it can make to southern Lebanon, as what happened of the major capabilities that Hezbollah have, and also the scene will be complex in front of Israel, especially for the different situations before 2000, because of the Hezbollah capabilities and for the cooperation between the Lebanon army and also for the defense, the great defense that Israeli take in the southern Lebanon. Maybe it will make a very complex occupation in front of the Israeli side, and it's too early to talk about some negotiations with the Israeli side. Because the conflicts in southern Lebanon didn't end yet, and also for Israeli side, as we noticed in the last days, they announced the forces are very weak, and there are a great distortion in the southern Lebanon, and also for the president said they launched more than 10 red flags. The scene is very complex in front of Netanyahu administration, and it's now clear in either in the entity itself, especially the popularity of Netanyahu is wavering, and also for the war is wavering. And now from here we say the situation is very complex in front of Israel in southern Lebanon.
Okay, back again to Mr. Roth. Mr. Roth, I'll ask you again. Trump indicates he does not plan to send ground troops to Iran. However, U.S. Secretary of State Marco Rubio says Washington can meet its objectives in Iran war without deploying ground troops, even as more than 1,000 additional service members are sent to the region. Sir, could you further elaborate on this? And does Donald Trump want to get out of this war as soon as possible?
Well, I think any American president wants to get out of a war as soon as possible. The question is whether or not the objectives have been met, and the administration has been very clear that the objectives are being met. As to the issue of a major commitment of troops into battle, I don't think 1,000 ground troops is a major commitment. It's certainly a significant number, but it's not anything close to what.
And both are contradicting statements, sir.
Well, I don't know that they're contradictory. The moving troops to the region and actually employing troops in battle are two different things. And the administration has been very clear that it has a multi-track strategy, things it's doing all at once. In parallel, and it needs to be prepared. And if something happens that requires the insertion of what they call boots on the ground, even for a very short period of time, perhaps to conduct a search and destroy mission for the enriched uranium that we know Iran possesses. It's enough to make 11 weapons, according to most estimates here in the United States. That you wanna be ready, and so sending 1,000 troops over with that kind of search and destroy mission in mind, I don't think is an expansion or prolongs the war. I think it may bring it to a quicker conclusion. I think it may, and it is very much consistent with what the White House has been saying.
Okay, Mr. Roth, the United States has proposed a 15-point ceasefire plan, but Iran has not responded yet. Is the April 6th deadline a real window for diplomacy or a step towards escalation?
Well, first of all, there's some debate as to whether or not that this discussed 15-point plan is a legitimate proposal or is a media fabrication. I'm sure that the U.S. has put some ideas, some suggestions on the table. It is difficult at this point to negotiate with Iran because we don't know, frankly, where the supreme leader is and if the supreme leader is in fact the supreme leader. We may be talking to elements within the government there have been reports here in the United States that it's in fact the Iraqi Revolutionary Guard that's in control of the war fighting and the infrastructure of the country. That would be a big departure from what they've had, and certainly means that the supreme leader isn't in charge anymore, making decisions.
Dr. Jafar, President Trump says talks are going very well. While Israel is escalating strikes, is there a gap between diplomacy and the reality on the ground?
Yes, as it appears, because regarding the announcement, U.S. announcement and Israeli announcement, there is a great gap between the announcement and regarding the what is happening, because from 10,000 of the special forces, U.S. special forces, they are present in the Middle East, and also they are present in the borders, especially in the GCC region. This refer that the possibility
Sir, do you
of
mean, sorry to interrupt here, sir. Do you mean to say that the 1,000 additional service members sent to the region are already in the region?
Yes, many news agencies said that the great part of these forces reached the region, and it's because of the announcement of the U.S. officials and Israeli officials, as the preparation have two targets: either have the main leverage on stressing on negotiations, as we say, or as we call the negotiations, and delivering messages, or because of the ground invasion and for in the coastal areas and Iranian sides. It happened before in the beginning of the war, when the U.S. said they went with negotiations with the Iranian side. However, at the end, Israeli and American side started the war on Iran. I think the scene is repeated one more time, but as the Iranian media said and the reports said, they are ready to confront these kind of threats and to stop and defend recently as being a major power. And it's a evidence that Iran have very thoroughly plans for any escalation that the U.S. side and Israeli side can show. Iran also moved for a new type of revolution, which is a leadership revolution, but it's a smart revolution, as what happened in 1974. It's a leadership revolution, and maybe Iran leak is very high.
Mr. Roth, Rubio suggested the conflict could end within weeks. What factors could shape that timeline from your own perspective, sir?
The principal thing would be the agreement by the Iranian government, which I don't at this point think it's likely, to turn over the enriched uranium and to give in to the President Trump's demands. I think what we've heard up to now in the last couple of days attributed to the new supreme leader, the new Ayatollah Khamenei, has been a statement of Iranian resolve, of his resolve to resist American pressure to give up their nuclear aspirations. But
do you think they want to give up their nuclear aspirations, sir?
No, I don't think they want to, and I don't think they've ever been genuine in their negotiations. I think that while the political and diplomatic leadership in the country may have a desire to be cooperative, that it's the supreme leader's intent all along to get what we can refer to as an Iranian bomb that they would use to threaten the United States and America's allies in the region, as well as global commerce. I don't think that the Supreme Leader was ever deterred in that. I think that is part of the reason that we're experiencing the military action that we're seeing now, because in fact the negotiations were not fruitful. They were not genuine. I
They
am
were in the
hoping
middle
that
of
the latest round,
negotiations, Mr. Peter. They were not. They did not end not fruitful. They were in the middle of the negotiations when Israel and the United States attacked Iran.
well, I don't disagree with you here. I think that the decision was made that they were not negotiating in good faith, that they were simply trying to buy time. And I think that we've seen efforts again and again and again by Iran to buy time so they can build a bomb. And this is something that the Biden and Obama administrations tried to deal with with a large international agreement, which did not prohibit Iran from obtaining or building weapons. They tried to buy off the regime. That didn't work. President Trump has taken a different approach.
Okay, Mr. Worf, as you mentioned, the Biden administration, was the Biden administration ever thinking of attacking Iran?
No, I don't think the Biden administration
Thank you very much.
ever
Dr. Jafar, talks between the United States and Iran are ongoing. What factors might shape Tehran's response to Washington's proposal?
Yes, Iran have many leverage cards, and the most one important one that stressed the U.S. side after the targets were shifted after the destroying regime to open Hormuz Strait that have an economic leverage and financial leverage worldwide. I think this card in the Iranian hands is a very important card. Because they succeed on the important point, which is the Hormuz Strait, despite other power cards that regarding threatening the U.S. interests in the region, and also the threaten of the ship vessels or the U.S. artifacts that are in the region, and regarding the Israeli entity. I think Iran have all of these cards regarding the negotiations or for exchanging messages with the U.S. Also, the Iranian defense and Iranian resilience in this war in front or against the major power in the world, and that representing the West. I think this kind of resilience in front of the major power worldwide is one of the important cards regarding Iran. When China is retaliated to one step back in front of Iran, and also for the Russia, despite Iran is taking more step forward for this kind of confrontation. This means that Iran have a lot of leverage cards that can achieve a lot of their demands in this negotiation. And also it appears that it's very complex because the Americans want a prolonged war. Didn't want a prolonged war. They want it short so that they can destroy the Iranian regime. So when these targets didn't achieve, so that the U.S. side is weakened, especially in front of their negotiations demands. And this appeared after the Americans said the 15 points regarding the negotiations. And also Iran is not in a hurry when they responded to these points, and there are many reports saying that the Iranian side tried to neglect or cancel these points because they don't want to go into negotiations to these points, especially for the ballistic capabilities and for the Iranian interest in the region. This is also an evidence that the Iranian side can enforce a lot of demands in this kind of negotiation operation.
Mr. Roth, how are current military developments affecting the chances of successful negotiations with Tehran in light of what Dr. Jafar just said now, that Iran has a very important chord, which is the Strait of Hormuz, and of course Donald Trump is saying that, or claiming, negotiations are going on with 15 points. Do you think that Tehran will abide to the 15 points? And do you think that, how do you see the trajectory at the end of the day?
Well, I'm optimistic that the issues with the Strait of Hormuz are going to be resolved quickly.
Resolved without ending the war, sir?
Without ending the war. They affect the global community. Iran's allies, frankly, few though they may be, are far more dependent on the Strait of Hormuz being open than America is. And so I suspect that there will be considerable pressure to end any mining that's going on and to stop the shooting. Iran is caught in an interesting paradox here, in that if they close off the Strait of Hormuz, they can't sell the oil that they have for sale. If they can't sell the oil, they can't fund their defenses. So in a sense, they're caught in a trap of their own making. Closing the strait is bad for them strategically. It's bad for them economically. It makes it harder for them to win the war.
It makes it harder for Iran to win the war?
That's correct.
Okay, Dr. Jafar, with increased operations in Lebanon, how likely is a wider regional conflict, sir?
The regional conflict is expanded from the American-Israeli invasion on Iran, because the Iraqi side involved in this kind of war, and also the Lebanon side. And also there is an announcement of the Houthis operation for taking part in this kind of conflict, supporting the Iranian side and Iraqi side and Lebanese side. I think this conflict is expanded already, especially after targeting many lively regions and sites in Iran, and nuclear sites and nuclear facilities and other facilities, and also after the ground operation that Israel started in southern Lebanon, and recently Houthis intervention in these operations. I think the American escalation is moved to another stage, and it apparently didn't achieve the first targets from the first stage of the war, because it's very clear from the escalation of the operations. And going to this scenario, this new scenario recently is another evidence for the failure of the first targets of the operation, and also for adjusting the plan is started to be appeared from the Iranian side and in the region as a whole, and it makes it appear to confront this kind of escalation with another escalation, and with the Houthis intervention is an evidence for escalation of the confrontation from the resilient side in the region, and also for the type of Iran's target.
Okay, got your point, sir. I got your point, Dr. Jafar. Dr. Jafar, the Strait of Hormuz, Mr. Roth said that if closed, Iran will lose the war. How do you read this, sir? And what are your comments on this?
Strait of Hormuz is an Iranian point because Iran has started to control it, and we see this through the crossing of this strait. It didn't close it totally, however, it closed it totally in front of American interests, and with these kind of interests relating to this side, Iran is still giving announcement for crossing for the vessels that serve the world interests that doesn't support U.S. In this kind of war against Iran, and also for the Iranian petrol is still exporting worldwide, and also the other than Iranian petrol is still exporting to the countries those who doesn't support America, and also it's crossed through a Strait of Hormuz, and Iranian side clearly after the agreement that were held between Iran that it should be mitigated with a protocol of crossing, and it's different from another protocol.
Okay,
And,
that's your point. I was
this,
just asking to confirm or deny what Mr. Roth said. Mr. Roth, disruptions in the Strait of Hormuz, which is a very vital strait, of course, are already impacting global energy. How serious could this become?
It depends on where you're talking about. In the United States,
It's
it's
affecting,
caused,
sir, it's affecting globally, and of course, on top of all is the United States.
but it's not affecting every part of the world equally. In the United States, we've seen a rise in energy prices, but certainly they're still lower than they were in the Biden administration. People are not happy about it, but there aren't gas lines or marching in the streets. Places that are more
Sorry, I didn't
dependent.
hear you well. What were you saying about the Biden administration?
I said that the prices are still lower than they were in the Biden administration.
But didn't they go
That's
higher since the war started?
they have gone higher, yes, but they're still lower than they were in the previous
So it's
administration.
affecting
People
the
are
economy
unhappy
in the
about it.
United States and globally, sir.
Of course it is. But in places like China, which are wholly dependent on Iran for oil, the impact has been much worse. America is well positioned because of our own domestic production capacity, and we get most of our oil imports from Mexico and Canada, and we are a net energy exporter. We are not as impacted by a cutoff or a slowdown in the production of oil by Iran and its sale in global markets. Countries that are more dependent on Iran are having a tougher time. This is why the effort to keep the Strait of Hormuz open is a global issue that has supporters even among Iran's friends, which, as I've said, are few and far between. It is a trap the Iranians have set for themselves. If they continue to harass shipping in the Strait of Hormuz, if they close the Strait of Hormuz, they do themselves as much damage as they do the rest of the world.
Mr. Peter, why does U.S. President Donald Trump want to end this war as soon as possible?
I think any president wants to end a war as soon as possible.
Okay, thank you. Got your point. Dr. Jafar?
Our greatest.
Okay, go ahead, sir. Go ahead. Sorry to interrupt.
Our greatest treasure is our warfighters, and the longer this military action goes on, the more at risk they are. And so, we want to get them out of harm's way. We want to bring them home.
Dr. Jafar, the White House recently announced a 10-day delay on strikes against energy infrastructure to allow diplomacy. Yet Israel proceeded to strike multiple nuclear and industrial facilities. Does this show a lack of coordination or a joint strategy to pressure Iran? Or do the United States and Israel have different objectives?
In fact, there are many objectives. There is a U.S. objectives and the Israeli objectives. From the Israeli side, they want to take benefit of this kind of chance before the negotiations period for striking more capabilities and the high percent of the Iranian figures, and so that they can take use of the time between the war and for the negotiations results. This is from the Israeli side. There is another objective in the framework of the time of the war regarding stressing more on the Iranian regime. As I think it will not be collapsed totally in the Iranian regime regarding the continuous strikes. For the U.S. side, they want from this dilation, they want to strike more institutions and energy sectors and energy facilities. This is the first objective. The second objective to want for more access for Iran, so that they can take benefit of the exchanging messages of negotiations phase. And also they have another objective regarding the readiness for a ground operation for the Iranian coastal areas. Inside and also inside the Iran itself, and because of the scene is very complex in front of the American side, either from the ground operations or from the dropout operations inside the Iranian regions, because of the geographic site and geopolitical situation, the U.S. is still making it ready for a ground operation to Iran, because the intervention or the ground operation is not as same from getting out of the Iranian region. And also the American history show the failure of these kind of ground operations, especially in Iraq and Vietnam and Afghanistan. Historically, Americans have this kind of failure and have to confront societies that they succeeded to get out the Americans from their land. So that how can we say this in front of Iran, that have a major capabilities and have the cooperation of the societies in front of the Americans?
Got your point, sir. Dr. Jafar, got your point. Mr. Waff, Washington says the war could end soon, while Israeli officials talk about expanding it. Do Washington and Israel share the same goal for ending this war, or are they differently working timelines, sir?
I think that Washington and Israel have goals in common, but as they say, all poodles are dogs, but not all dogs are poodles. Israel may have other objectives in mind that the president and his national security team do not share.
Dr. Ghaffar, Iran says recent strikes undermine diplomacy. How might this affect trust in negotiations? If any, of course, because we hear claims.
Maybe Iranian take the lesson of the U.S. side in the new diplomatic way that come out from all of any protocols, international protocols that the Trump approach and also his new administration approach. It is not similar to any what we have studied in our universities in the diplomatic side and the negotiations period. There are many proxies between with the announcement and what is happening in the real ground. The Iranian side with its patience and with its governance and political and the diplomatic side understand the American situation, and maybe they took the lesson and it is appeared in the military operations that Iran is suffering and that Iran is striking to US in the region without any stop at the same time. They open another path for negotiations without any retaliation either for a one step backward, and this is an evidence that it's a fully understanding of the American side that depend on every kind or every point in these days regarding Iranian side. Iran through their strikes that didn't retaliate or didn't decrease since the beginning of the war, and despite talking about negotiations and advanced negotiations, however, they're still striking a very clear striking and escalating that is suitable with the strike, the military, U.S. military strike and the Israeli military strike, and this is reflects or refers to the fully understanding of the proxy situation that the Americans adopt regarding the Iranian side and with other countries.
Sir, do you want to say, Dr. Kamel, do you want to say in your context now that Iran is the upper hand?
No, Iran is a regional country. As we can saw,
in
it's
this
an
war,
active
sir,
country.
In the war that's taking place now.
It's not a third world country, and it's not a developing country. However, as I said from a while ago, it have a revolutionary step that now can have a leadership revolutionary step that is very smart, that is a cope with the military technologies, and it's a country is on the using the nuclear thinking, and in this industrial they are using the local industrial production. Maybe the Americans and the Iranian doesn't want an independent country in the region or the Middle East.
Got your point, sir, because I have to wrap up now. Mr. Peter Roth, in 10 seconds, because I have to wrap. Do you agree with Dr. Kamel, or don't you agree?
I think that we will hopefully get to a negotiated settlement.
Hopefully, sir.
Quickly.
Hopefully, sir. That was Dr. Kamel Jafar, political research, and Mr. Peter Roth, contributing editor at News Week. Thank you both for your sharing your insights, in-depth analysis, informative and intellectual knowledge. And on top of all your time, our special coverage ends now. But we will continue to monitor the latest developments and bring you updates as this rapidly evolving situation unfolds. Thank you very much for watching Q News, and stay tuned for more updates. Thank you.